do not do this. You're taking your lives beyond risk. Something's going to go wrong, and if it does go wrong, because the chances are it will, because you're on your own in a 9-foot dinghy in the dark in the English Channel, there's nobody there that's going to help you. It was a hot topic, so this was 2019. We did the Channel one. It was like it's come back into the news now. The boats coming across was hot topic. There had been a surge earlier in that year, 2019, as the spring weather started to kick in the English Channel. They were starting to come across a big influx.
So the people being rescued have a choice who they're rescued by. This incident was just 4 miles from the French coast. And my next question is, 4 miles from the French coast, A, why didn't the French turn them back? It was clearly dangerous, choppy waters, and clearly the craft was overladen with passengers. And secondly, why did British vessels go so deep into French waters to perform a rescue and then bring people back to Dover?
Did you have a mission, or were you trying to demonstrate how easy it is to get into the country?
That was going to be the culmination of a week of living in France. We went to Paris, first of all, so we took part in the Yellow Vest protests. I got tear gassed. I got it on video. It's brilliant by the French police. We went to one of the notorious migrant camps on the outskirts of Paris. We did want to report on it, so we didn't go in with a bias. So we weren't there with a purpose of we want to go and prove this from this point of view of whatever part of the divide you're on. We didn't want to go in with any. We have got preconceptions, everyone has, about everything in life, but we didn't want to go in there and then to be the focus of what we're going to see and what we want to do. We wanted to go in and report on it, not from the BBC's point of view, not from some other extremist point of view, but straight down the middle, normal blokes, without an agenda, not backed by any corporation, any group. We're just independent, on our own.
Apolitical.
Yeah, not getting paid for anything. Just go in and go, right, this is good and bad, whatever side of the divide it might fit, that narrative. We could go from one narrative that would fit one side to a completely different one on what we saw. We didn't limit on what we saw and reported on because we wanted to show a bias. We're just going to go there. What we see, we don't care if it riles anybody else's opinions or their narrative. We're going to see what's going on and we're going to report on it. We wanted to go in and see what is happening politically, what's happening on the ground personally, the people in these camps, the people in the communities close to them, how are they being affected? How is it affecting when they do get to the UK? So, because we get told all the stories about the type of people that are coming over and so they're seeking refuge or whatever it is. Well, let's go and see what's happening at the actual point of exit, if you like, where they're coming from and what's going on that side of it. We only see the boats washing up on the shores in Kent. Well, what's happening where they're setting off from? So there was no set political agenda, but we wanted to put any political or current affairs issues that we saw out in the limelight as well. Well, I think the beauty of the story is that it was pretty much nothing like a military operation, not well planned, not well thought out, and not well resourced. We had a quick look at your usual channels, right, where they're coming from. We all know where the entry and exit points were, from northern coast of France to Kent or somewhere on the South England coast. They're coming from the northern coast of France, but they're not just coming from their home countries and landing in Calais to come across. There's a route. There's a well-trodden route. How are they getting there? So we looked at the stop-off routes from first arriving in southern Europe, and it's Greece, Italy, Spain, and then Paris seemed to be a big stopping transit point for them. What are people complaining about in Paris about these migrant areas? And we found one place called Port-la-Chapelle, which was a no-go area for a lot of Parisians, where they'd allowed a big migrant camp to form. And that was sort of their staging post, as we found out as well. They'd go there, they'd take stock, they'd make some contacts, and then they'd move on to the northern coast of France. So we had a friend who owned a 9-foot dinghy with a small outboard on the back. He would and did come across on the ferry with his van with this dinghy in it, deflated, meet us on the northern coast of France, which was a little bit of a military operation, meeting agents in the middle of the dark on a shore. we found a slipway, which we'd recce'd only from Google Maps. We hadn't even been there in person to see if we could actually launch from this point. We were like, right, well, Google Maps is a slipway going into the sea. We didn't even take a bearing, as in a dedicated one. We knew we had one, go north, and we're going to hit England. But luckily, it was a clear night, and we could see big red, sort of 4 red dots of a mast on the Kent coast. I went, right, let's just head for that. And at some point, God forbid, we're going to end up in England. Our friend was then going to have to drive back across on the ferry and then come and meet us to collapse all the kit. Because obviously, if you're an actual migrant boat, stuff the boat. Once you hit that Pebble Beach, boom, you're off. First hit that surf, and I'll be honest, I said to Paul, I said, mate, shall we go back? Because these waves were hitting us, and we hadn't even gone 100 meters into the channel. And he steadied me, and he said, no, it'll still be rough when we get here, but this is the initial surf. It's not going to be hammering us with these white waves the whole way. So, and then the other one was the ships. We had some, they were close calls. It wasn't like some you've seen in movies where the bow of the ship was like 20 meters in front of us and we nearly got hit by it. But in the dark, we couldn't work out. We could see the lights of these ships, but we didn't know how big it was, and therefore we had no reference of how far away it was. We did see what we believe were a couple of Border Force cutter ships. So, of course, then we're going to get nabbed. And the scary part of that wasn't that we were going to get arrested. It was that we couldn't accomplish the challenge. So if we did get nabbed, we're British citizens. We're out on a boat in the English Channel. We're not carrying any actual migrants, apart from a blow-up doll, which I'll tell you about. There's a funny part of it. So we weren't actually doing anything illegal because we were British citizens with British passports, not smuggling somebody, not leading the way for somebody, because we did actually get arrested afterwards. We made it. We got across undetected and all the rest of it, but we didn't actually do anything illegal. So we made it across, got to a Folkestone beach, high fives. Yes, we've made it. Like I said earlier, of course, if we were actual migrants, that's it. Job done. You leg it. You're on the mainland. You're done. You disappear. Of course, we couldn't do that because we had the boat to pack up. So we landed on the shingle beach, unfortunately. So we had to lug the small engine, deflate the boat, and drag it out, all our kit and everything up this shingle beach. He had a comedy moment. He borrowed a wheelbarrow off a local council landscaper, and he was doing shuttle runs up and down the hill with all our kit. Somebody whose houses were facing this beach has got onto the police and gone, 2 blokes have just washed up on a dinghy in front of my house on Folkestone Beach, which is hot topic at the minute. You might want to have a look at it. So, of course, they did come and have a look at it. Police came, then Border Force came, then Customs came, then the National Crime Agency came. We were interviewed for an hour on the beach, and then they decided they were going to arrest us. What we didn't know was 5 minutes before we landed, 2 actual migrant boats had landed a few hundred meters down the coast. They were, I believe, Iranians. We didn't know this at the time. I didn't know this until I got back to Folkestone Police Station, and they had to explain to the custody sergeant why they were detaining us. So these boats had landed, and they'd been detained by the Border Force. 5 minutes later, we've washed up. The kicker was, when they'd arrested the guys on these boats, the 2 drivers were ex-military, so working for either a No Borders activist group as volunteers, or maybe paid by the traffickers. Whatever it was, they were ex-military. So, of course, during these interviews with the NCA and all the others, the question came up, well, what do you do for a living, Mr. West? I was serving at the time. Well, I'm a colour sergeant in the Royal Marines. What do you do for a living, Mr. Dwyer? He was an electrician, but we met in the reserves before I joined the Marines. So they're like, okay, well, how do you know each other? And he said, well, I was in the Royal Engineers and we met there. So they're like 2 and 2 together. These 2 are military. The other boats are military. They washed up 5 minutes within each other. They're part of that group. Boom, the cuffs came out, and that was us detained. So when my friend had come across to meet us with the van and the dinghy, he brought across this blow-up doll. He dressed it up, and he'd stuck a colour imprint face of Gary on this blow-up doll. So he was our stowaway.
His name is Gary.
So, of course, which was highly amusing to us, not so much the NCA. But during the interview process, they get my videos out and they go, okay, for the benefit of the tape, or whatever they say now. I can see Mr. West in the front of the boat and Mr. O'Dwyer is behind driving it. And then after about the fourth video, they started referring to Gary like he was an actual person. Like, I can see Gary laid down in the front, and it was brilliant. And the whole of this interview was them just watching my videos and me just laughing about it with them shaking their heads. The solicitor didn't say a single word through the whole probably hour until the very end. And they said, right, that's the end of it. Anything to say, Mr. Goldberg, whatever his name was? And he went, just in my 40 years of being a solicitor, I have never come across anything as ridiculous as this in my life. We're just going to go there. What we see, we don't care if it riles anybody else's opinions or their narrative. We're going to see what's going on and we're going to report on it.
We are not far now. You can see the White Cliffs quite well. Dover port is off to the right. I think we're heading towards Folkestone.
4 tours of Iraq and Afghanistan with a special forces unit.
Which is probably why people were telling us we're mental and we're going to die not to do it.